The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Gurley, straight ahead to the goal line. Touchdown. What an answer by the Rams.
Rivers almost lost control. Instead recovers, gives it to Eckler, and Eckler's on the move. 20, 10, touchdown. It's a 37-yard field goal for Greg Joseph. This is to win it. Snap is back. Ball down. The kick on the way. Line drive. The kick is good. With 2 seconds left in overtime, the Browns have won it.
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And check out every episode of the show at basicallysports.tumblr.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg, Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
So, let me do this. There, I have to have my handy notebook handy in case there are points in the show where I need to make a note to drop in a Paul Stanley or a Cleveland Rocks or whatever the stuff is that we use.
Hey, Toronto Maple Leafs 3-1.
There's our first Toronto.
Yeah, see, well, you lost the game. The mighty Anaheim Ducks are 3-0.
Are they now?
Yeah, no blemishes.
I think they'll probably go undefeated.
You're welcome for John Gibson, by the way.
You're welcome for Frederick Anderson.
I think the Ducks will probably go undefeated. And Mike, I hate to say it, but I'm thinking the Leafs probably go like...
It's going to be an 81-1 season.
No, I was thinking more like 77-5.
I suppose I'll have to suffer through that.
Yeah, I know. It's tough.
Speaking of hockey, did you guys... I know, Zach, you saw it. But, Greg, the fucking banner, the Birds...
Oh.
I did not. What is this banner?
The Predators actually don't have very many banners in their history. The first banner they ever raised was the Western Conference champion one from a couple years ago. So last year they won the division for the very first time. All right, raise a banner. You win the President's Trophy for the very first time. All right, raise a banner. But they didn't think that was enough. They put up a regular season Western Conference champion banner.
A what?
Get the fuck out!
Regular season Western Conference champion banner.
Okay.
Which, by the way, if you win the President's Trophy, that also means that you're winning your conference.
I'm a bit shocked that they didn't just put up, like, regular season NHL champions.
The Predators are not the most egregious team to do this. The Sharks did it a couple times. The Red Wings of all teams have done it. But that doesn't make it better. It's still
basically it's a banner that says we had more wins than anybody else in the Western Conference or more points during the regular season.
Yeah, you still lost to Winnipeg in the second round, so go the fuck home.
As Admiral said in one of the threads, you shouldn't be able to get 3 banners out of a second round exit.
Not really.
Like,
that just seems desperate. You've got a Western Conference champion, a legitimate one. Why not?
Right.
I don't understand why you need to go and make one up.
That's the one that makes even less sense too, because it's not like they just said, "Oh, we had no banner, so let's throw it together." You actually have a legitimate Western Conference championship.
Well, you've got a President's Trophy banner, you've got a Western Conference Champions banner, and you've got come on.
Yeah.
That's enough. You don't need to make up shit at that point.
That's as dumb as Columbus putting up a banner that says, we were leading the Capitals 2-0 before we lost in the first round.
Yeah.
Why not?
When it comes to bad banners, this isn't the worst of them that I've ever seen. It's not good. You know.
No, it's not as dumb as like AFC finalist or whatever.
That's the one I was thinking of.
That's another one.
Oh my! What are we gonna do with those Birds? I tell you. And you know, the thing that I think that really bugs me a little bit more about it is that they're not a terrible organization. They don't need to go to stunts like this. I mean, they've been pretty successful over the past few years. You know, you've got the 3 legitimate banners. There was really no need to come up with this thing. It just seems stupid.
I mean, okay, that's the thing. You got these teams, and I don't mean to turn this into another Sunbelt rant, but it's the Pirds, and it's going to happen, so you're all just going to have to bear with me here. The Pirds have had a pretty good time cultivating a local fan base, and that is a good thing. I don't mean to sound snarky or diminish that. It's a good thing that they've managed to make hockey work in Nashville because the league is stronger when most of its franchises are healthy. The problem is that they still have the mentality of this Sunbelt team that needs to claw for respect. And so you got try-hard fans with their stupid chants. You got the stupid catfish, which is just a ripoff of shit Detroit's been doing for decades. And you've got bullshit like this. And it's like, Nashville, you've built a good team. You've had some success. You've got, by all accounts, a vibrant fan base. You've got people in the city who actually care about you and come out to your games. You don't need to pull this Florida Panthers bullshit anymore. You don't. You really fucking don't.
In other news, guys, I think, and I might be wrong about this because I didn't really go back and check, but I think we might be celebrating a first with the show this week.
Oh.
This may be the first time in the history of basically a sports show that all three of our NFL teams won on the same weekend.
Oh, shit.
I think it might be. And you can thank my Cleveland Browns for making that streak even possible.
Yeah, it would have been hard for a while there with the Browns.
Right. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that this might be the first time.
I mean, it would have to be, right?
Almost, yeah. Well, we've been doing the show for 6 years.
Well, the years that we had Andy, we also had to deal with the Bears.
Yeah.
Well, and then I'm trying to think, because the last time that the Browns won before this, before this season, they'd beaten the Chargers, so that cancels each other out.
Right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the Chargers lost the week the Browns won their first game this season.
That was week 2, right? Or was week 3? Week 3.
That was the Rams game, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that might be a first. I'm not sure. I mean, again, it's not that big a deal, but the bigger deal is that the Cleveland Browns.
I'm still going with my upside down LA Chargers logo because it's still appropriate.
The argument for the Chargers, and I think it's halfway legitimate, the only two teams they've lost to so far this year are the Rams and the Chiefs.
The NFL is easy when you play more bad teams than good teams. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying.
Look, I don't know. I'm just being pessimistic because it's the Chargers, and I have no reason to get my hopes up.
I loved Hugh Jackson holding up 2 after the game, which they were talking about it on the Bill Simmons podcast. No one's quite sure if he meant there were 2 seconds left in overtime, and he was worried about that, like he hadn't realized that the game was over, or if that meant we've got 2 wins now. But then I thought, no, what he's doing is he's putting up, we're going to go for 2 after the field goal.
He needs to not be bragging about wins because any success this team has had this year is in spite of him.
But he's put us in a tough spot here because if they keep winning, they won't fire him. But yeah, so the Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Chargers of Costa Mesa, and the Los Angeles Rams of Los Angeles all won football games over the weekend.
The Rams, I was pulling for you guys because, fuck Russell Wilson.
Right.
And it looked like it was going to be a hard game, but it came through.
I was reminded how much I do hate Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
It's been a year, and I hadn't thought about it. And then I was like, oh, no, the Rams are going to destroy the Seahawks. No big deal. And then the first time he rolled out of the pocket and just ever so slightly avoided the rush. And all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I can't tackle him. And it's like, oh, you asshole. Just hit him square in the face. They eventually did.
How ironic would it be if Russell Wilson was literally struck by lightning?
Ironic and hysterical, because it would be. I'm sorry. I mean, I wouldn't normally, and I'm not wishing harm upon him. But if the powers that be in the universe want to conspire and make Russell Wilson get struck by lightning during the middle of an NFL game, I'm sorry, but I'm going to find that really funny. Watching him stand there and just a bolt of lightning comes out. I'm sorry, that's funny to me. But yeah, I don't know. I don't understand him because he's really the kind of player that generally you kind of root for. He's undersized and
he's just so insufferable.
But he's such an asshole.
It's the holier than thou.
Yeah, I just can't stand him. I mean, Drew Brees is basically the same guy, and I love Drew Brees. I think he's great, but Russell Wilson can go fuck right off. I can't stand him. That whole team, nothing pleases me more than to see them lose. I thought they'd give the Rams a tough time. I didn't think it would be that tough of a time,
No.
But the Rams, again, showing what a Super Bowl contender does, they won a game they probably shouldn't have won this week.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, the thing that the team showed, again, is that the offense can score whatever the hell it wants to.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the defense didn't show up, but they were able to stay stride for stride and score. And then I thought when they kind of the drive before the last one, they ran the ball on a third down when I thought that they for sure pass it, and it was very clearly like, oh, we're running the ball to set up this field goal. I thought that was a little conservative, and it just seemed out of character for Sean McVay. And I thought, well, they're going to kick the field goal, and they're going to give the Seahawks enough time, and Russell Wilson's going to pull another horseshoe out of his ass, and here we go. The Rams do get the ball back, and they look like they're going to punt it again and give them enough time. The Seahawks call a timeout. They think about it for an extra second and say, yeah, screw it, let's do it. And the QB sneak, I've never seen someone more pumped up for a QB sneak than Jared Goff was, but that was a hell of a call. And
I love that play call by Sean McVay. That was a basic fuck you call right there. Like, fuck you, we're taking this game right now. And there was nothing Seattle could do about it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, well, the Rams were just going to punt it, and then the Seahawks called the timeout for what reason, I don't know.
Well, Pete Carroll. I mean, we talk about Andy Reid being bad with clock management. It's not like Pete Carroll's some sort of genius when we get inside of 2 minutes. I'm just saying. But, yeah, I thought it was a great call. Sean McVay, again, how old is he now? 32, 33? Something like that?
He's 12.
12?
Yeah.
Whatever. He learned really well playing Madden for those 4 or 5 years in grade school. But he's another example of why NFL teams have got to get out of this network mentality of, well, so-and-so, like Jeff Fisher's a really good example of it, where he kept getting coaching jobs and he probably shouldn't have. Or a guy like Hugh Jackson, who was with the Raiders, was terrible, and he gets another shot with the Browns. Or John Gruden. You know what I mean? You've got to go out and find the next guy, and Sean McVay is the next guy. And more teams need to start thinking like that. I don't know if McVay is an advanced analytics guy or not, but if he is, that's what you got to start looking for, because he's the next great coach, I think.
Yeah,
He
he just analyzes film all day long.
Yeah.
That's literally all he does. And he has, like, you've seen the videos of him with that photographic memory he has, where he can recall basically any play he's ever called ever.
Yeah.
If you give him the situation and the time, he'll be like, oh yeah, no, we ran a screen out to the left side and he dodged this and dodged that. What? How?
But if you're looking at the NFL right now, the only coach in the league that I would say could possibly outcoach Sean McVay would be Bill Belichick, and I'm not even so sure about that.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that's how good the guy is, and I don't know that he was. I don't remember. Maybe he was on a lot of teams' radar when the Rams hired him, but that's what you got to find.
Really.
That's what you got to find, and maybe they got lucky. Maybe it was just one of those lucky breaks where they took this guy because they couldn't get anyone else, and he turned out to be great. But that's what you got to be looking for if you're a team looking for a coach. Not these retreads that we go through all the time.
Yeah.
And I can't think of names off the top of my head, but you guys know exactly who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're like on their fourth coaching job, or they're a coordinator that it's their turn type of thing. I mean, that's bullshit. You go for the best available person. And I think the Rams did that.
Yeah. No, there were, I remember during the hiring process, there were a lot of typical guys that you would think of, coordinator here, coordinator there, guys that had experience. And it sounded like McVay was one of those younger prospects in the coaching pool, but it was like, hey, we just want to see what this kid says and, give him the experience and, he'll use this to get a better job later on or something like that. And then they decided to pick him, and everyone was kind of leery because it's like, well, he's 33 years old or whatever.
He was 31 when they hired him.
31, yeah.
31,
now
yeah.
It's worked out pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Gotta say.
And it's not one of those things, too, where he just happened to get a hold of a great roster and he's just stepping back and getting out of the way.
Yeah.
Jeff Fisher would say otherwise, that Jeff Fisher is the reason that all of this is happening,
Well, I think Jeff Fisher is right. He is the reason all this is happening because they finally got smart and fired his stupid ass and put a guy in there that knew what to do with those players. We've talked about it before, but they had essentially the same roster last year that Fisher had the year prior, and look what McVay did with it. And to me, the NFL coaching thing, and it's always been problematic because not enough minorities get hired. It's always like an old boy network and all that. But there's got to be another Sean McVay out there somewhere, and there has to be less of the Hugh Jacksons and more Sean McVays.
Oh,
it's good for the league. It's good for the league. It's good for the league to have a team like the Rams that's good, exciting, and fun to watch. That's good for everybody.
I guarantee you the next round of coaching hires are going to be young coaches.
Probably, yeah.
Like, because they're going to see, oh, well, this is the new trend then. And all these teams are going to make a bunch of bad decisions. It's like, hey, let's get this 28-year-old in here. It's like, well.
Yeah, you don't want to go too crazy.
Well, no, you got to have the right guy.
Right.
And McVay, like I said, McVay's just, he watches film all day long. He's Tiger and plays like on, dinner napkins and whatever. It's just, he's a very particular guy that was able to, move through the coaching ranks so fast and absorb all this and put it into practical application, which he has with the Rams. And again, the right set of players too. Like, he could have gone somewhere else where there just wasn't the right amount of talent. And like, if you put him on the Browns, I don't know if that would have fixed anything.
Maybe not 2 years ago, but this season's Browns, I would love to see him coach that team.
Maybe.
Love it.
But again, you got to have the quarterback, the running back, the receivers. It's all there for him with the Rams. It's just so sad. Like, you look at that game and how great that was, and then you look at, when you talk about coaching, you look at the Sunday Night Football, the premier game of the week.
Oh my God!
I didn't watch a single second of Texans Cowboys.
No,
I had it on. I mean, I wouldn't say I sat down and watched it, but I saw bits and pieces of it. It was god awful.
Yeah,
just god awful. Both of these guys. I mean, they both. I don't know how Jason Garrett managed to keep his job. I don't know how he's doing it.
He's a yes man, and that's all that he needs to be.
Yeah, but at a certain point, though, Jerry Jones has got to go, okay, this is great that he says yes to me, to everything that I say to him, but I am really tired of being embarrassed because that team is just bad. I look at them now and I think, how in the world did they go 12-4 a couple years ago? That's what I see. It's just, wow, just a bad football team. And the Texans, and what's his name, Bill O'Brien? Yeah. I think we can chalk up another college coach that didn't quite work out in the NFL.
Well, not even just another college coach, another Bill Belichick disciple.
Yeah,
that didn't work out.
Well, like I said before, the reason Bill Belichick, you hire his disciples, but what people don't understand is that the reason his disciples do well is because he's in charge of everything. Mm-hmm. Unless you can hire Belichick, don't bother. That's the way I look at it. Although, what's his name? Vrabel might be halfway decent. We'll have to wait and see with my irrational confidence Titans. But
your irrational confidence Titans defeated the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Was that this week?
That was last week.
Oh, that was last week. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
They lost to the Bills this week.
Right. They lost to the Bills.
Right. It's like friend of the show Cosmic says, this is why they're not called the Rational Confidence Titans. It's the Irrational Confidence because of things like this.
Okay, so Gregory, defend this.
What's to defend?
The team you have irrational confidence.
Well, that's what I mean. If I could defend it, it would be rational and it would make sense. It makes no sense.
That's fair.
All I will say is this: I don't think any of us had the Bills having 2 wins at this point in the season, because they're 2-3 now.
Yeah, 2-3.
See, I'm telling you, man, that team. I don't care how bad they look and how awful they are. I promise you, it's week 5. In 8 weeks, we're going to be talking about them still being in the hunt for the playoffs. I guarantee it right now because that's the way they are. They'll
be in the hunt at like what 6 and 8.
Yep, exactly. They will be right at that point where you go, I don't know if they can win a couple games. They're right there because that's where they've been every year since we started doing this. It never changes. And even this year, we thought they were going to go 0-16, and for a minute there, it looked like they certainly could. Now here they are at 2-3, hanging around just like they always do. They seem to be able to fall ass backwards into doing the right thing just enough times to get wins when you think they shouldn't, and here we are. And that's what they're going to be. They're the same old Bills. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be. They've got the same basic talent they had last year. Oh, it's frustrating. Fuck this whole league. I can't believe I wasted 4 hours of my life watching that ridiculous Browns-Ravens game on Sunday.
Oh, God.
What, you didn't like the Browns winning 4-3 on penalty kicks?
Oh. Oh.
Well, no, the Browns actually scored a touchdown, right? They just missed.
They scored a touchdown and, of course, missed the extra point.
Oh, boy.
So that's 2 games now for certain that had the kicker made an extra point, they would have won. Now, they ended up winning this one anyway, but that's 2 games this year. 1 extra point makes all the difference. And is that the 3rd time they've gone into overtime this year out of 5 games?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
I thought they're going to be – I was watching that game going, they're going to be 1, 2, and 2 after this. They're going to tie this game.
Yeah, they almost did.
Yeah.
There's no reason the Browns shouldn't be 4-1, honestly.
At bare minimum, 4-1, yeah. I will say that the
Which
New
is
Orleans,
insane.
Yeah. Unbelievable. But, yeah, I watched that game. The kick, I mean, I was just laughing at it towards the end. I was like, this is just hysterical to me. And then the kick, like I said in the text I sent you guys, Phil Niekro never threw a knuckleball that good. But then I found out it was partially blocked. But
that wasn't even, hit by anybody, right? They just...
Oh, that's the thing. Some people say it was partially blocked and others don't. In either case, and my girlfriend, when we were watching, she got mad because Hugh Jackson, being Hugh Jackson, with time left, runs the ball straight up the middle. And she goes, that's it, run the ball up the middle. And I said, no, it's a good idea to get position for the field goal. And those 3 yards made all the difference. If he doesn't get those 3 yards, that ball bounces off the crossbar and never gets in. It was the nuttiest game. Mayfield had almost 400 yards passing, and they scored 12 points. And I thought, this is like bad Marty Schottenheimer football. It's just what it
Marty
is.
Marty Schottenheimer went 14-2, I'll have you know.
Right. And there were times, this was like watching Marty Schottenheimer coach a playoff game. It's like watching him do it every week, except he's not smart Marty Schottenheimer. He's idiot playoff Marty Schottenheimer. That's what it is.
I don't know what happened to that man, when it became, you'd think, why?
He get a lead at 3-0 with 9 minutes to go in the first quarter and go, okay, we're going to sit on this lead the rest of the way. And I don't know. I don't want to go into a whole Browns thing again, but if there's a worse coach in football than Hugh Jackson, it's either Jason Garrett or Bill O'Brien, but I'm not so sure. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, Greg, here's a question for you then.
Those Lions
Who's the best team?
Who's the best team?
Who's the best team in Ohio?
Right now?
Is it the Bengals or the Browns?
Oh, it's the Bengals, I think. Yeah. They're pretty good, I think. I think they're pretty solid.
We completely missed the boat on the Bengals.
Boy, did we ever.
If you find somebody that was on the Bengals boat, then that person is probably a nut job.
Well, no, that person's lying because no one was.
Or they're a fan, one of the two. Yeah, not a lot of people were on them at all.
Now the big question is, when they get to the playoffs, can they win a game?
No, of course not. No, it's the same. It's the same as the Buffalo Bills. Here we're going to get the Bengals are going to get into the playoffs. I don't know how it's going to happen at this point, but it will. They'll end up playing the Texans and losing. Because the Texans, I don't know, maybe the NFL has a stipulation where if the Bengals make the playoffs, they have to play the Texans. Doesn't matter what the record is. Sorry, New England, you went 13-3, but we got to send you home so the Bengals can play Houston. I don't know. That's okay. That did remind me of something, though. We're 5 weeks in now, and Mike talked about how we missed on a lot of teams. So does anybody want to change any of their predictions at this point? Are there a couple that you'd like to go back and fix?
Fuck you, Texans. I'm never believing in you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Texans have fallen pretty hard. I mean, they won that game. They're 2-3. It's not.
Let's look at Greg's track record so far this season, okay? All right. My Super Bowl pick was Green Bay, Houston.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Don't think so.
2 bad teams that probably won't even go 500. Then I followed that up with a nice dose of, I think the Patriots are done. And all
they're
points.
Still, they've rebound. They're trucking along.
They're the Patriots again because I broke my own rule, which is always judge a season in quarters, not 1 week at a time. So that's where I'm at right now. I've got a Super Bowl of Houston versus Green Bay with the Patriots going 8-8.
The Patriots being done.
Yeah, right. So I'd like to have all of it back.
The one thing I'm sticking with, change things up. Well, 2 things I'm sticking with. I think the Bears.
We got the Bears. I think the Bears
are gonna win the NFC North. I still think so.
I agree with you.
And this is less sure because I think there's so much talent on that Eagles team that there's no way that they can continue to play as poorly as they have been. So this is dangerous, but I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm sticking with my Redskins win the NFC East.
God, that division's so bad, though.
It really is. I mean, that's not a crazy. It's not really that crazy of a pick.
The Giants could still win that thing. They won't because I think that they're clearly the worst team of the four.
This team, look. I'm just saying. I'm not saying the Redskins are a good football team. In fact, last week on Monday they got destroyed.
Yeah.
But look at the division. And Alex Smith, we give him a lot of shit, but he's reliable. And this just might be one of those years where if you just don't fuck up enough, you can win. That's
what I think. I think you're exactly right, Mike. I think that's that division in a nutshell. If you don't fuck up enough or too many times, you've got a shot. I don't know. The Eagles, you always get the Super Bowl hangover. Mm-hmm. And I think the Eagles have that. So that's part of it.
Now, I do want to say in contrast to that, I think that the Bears winning the NFC North, I do think the Chicago team is really good. Well, they're not going to be a Washington best of the worst situation. I do think Chicago is legitimately a good football team.
Well, when they got Khalil Mack, that transformed their defense from pretty good to able to completely dominate games, and that's very important, especially in that division later in the year. Trubisky, he's not going to go out and put up 6 touchdown passes last week. He's not going to do that every week, but he's with the talent they have around him and with that defense, all of a sudden he doesn't have to be throwing 350 yards a game. He just has to be good enough not to hurt them. Mm-hmm. And I think he can certainly pull that off. And then you look at the rest of that division. I mean, the Packers are just god-awful. There's no other way around it.
It's stagnant, and they sat around with their thumb up their ass. Yep. Aaron Rodgers is all we need, and now the rest of the league has caught up, and Chicago of all teams has a young, exciting quarterback. They've got a great defense, boistered by Mack, and it's just God, the fucking Raiders, man. You throw $100 million at John Gruden, but you can't pay Khalil Mack, really?
Right. That's going to go down as one of the dumbest moves in a long time in the NFL.
I mean, I don't think John Gruden cares because he's getting $100 million, but...
Yeah, they drew the wrong line in the sand.
Yeah. I would have traded Derek Carr before I would have traded Khalil Mack. And I mean, he's already shown what he can do. I got that first game he played. He was amazing against the Packers ended up winning that game. You look at it now and you go, how? But the Packers are bad. There's no other way to put it. It's not like, well, Rodgers is hurt and they're off their game a little bit. No, they just aren't good. The defense is bad. The receivers are banged up, but they're just not a good football team. And like Mike said, it's just that stagnation thing finally caught up with them. Now everybody knows what the Packers are going to do. And
look, Aaron Rodgers is a hell of a fucking quarterback, but he can't do it all.
No.
At the end, I mean, we say, oh, you need a quarterback in the NFL, and that's true, you do. But it can't just be. You need a good quarterback and a team around them. And sometimes you don't even necessarily need a good team. You just need a complete team.
Yep.
And the Packers don't have that.
They have no running game. The receivers are kind of hit and miss. I mean, they can be good and then they can be bad. The defense is a joke. And other than drafting about 35 secondary players, they haven't done anything to address the defense. So they're just a bad football team. But yeah, I think that the Bears are probably the best team in that division. I think the Lions could make some noise. I think that right now, if I had to make a prediction, I think the Bears and the Lions are the two best teams in that division. I think the Vikings they're shaky. They can be good, but I'm not sold on them. I'm not sold on them anymore.
I'm not sold about anything that the Detroit Lions are going to throw out there.
Look.
That's true. They can be great one week and god awful the next. You're right.
I believe the Vikings help a lot more.
You live by Kirk Cousins, you die by Kirk Cousins. All right, I don't know. I'm gonna agree with Zach on this. I think, to be perfectly honest, I think both the Vikings and the Lions are very inconsistent and very shaky.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one of them to outperform the other, I have more faith in the Vikings.
I agree. I'm backing away from that statement already because I started thinking about this. This Lions team does this every year.
Golden Tate.
They do this every year. I mean, they come out and they'll play terrible, and they have a couple of good games, and you go, oh, hey, the Lions might be pretty. No, they're not. They're going to be the same old Lions.
Golden
same old
Tate.
Lions. Yeah, but you got Matt Stafford who'll go out and light it up for a week or two in a row, and you get sucked into the Lions, and then you come to find out that, you know what, they're still the Lions. They're always going to be the Lions, and that's just the way it's going to be. But I still, that doesn't mean I have any more faith in Minnesota. I think the Bears, this division is theirs for the taking if they can just go get it. It's the way I see it. So we were right on the Bears. Mike, I don't know about your prediction with the Jets is going to be so good.
You look, all right, that is in the same category as you saying the Patriots are done. Because I said, when I made that Jets prediction, I predicted Patriots are going to start slumping. It's going to open up for someone. Why not the Jets?
Right.
And let's just be honest. The Patriots don't look as good as they have in past years, but they're still trucking along, doing what they need to do. So,
do you guys think that if the Patriots were in, say, the AFC West, would they be able to win that division?
Look, you got to.
Well, who are you taking out?
Yeah,
I was going to say. I mean, really, other than Kansas City, I don't know.
Kansas City.
The Chargers are there.
Kansas
City. The
City
Patriots would still win that division if you replace the Chiefs with the Patriots.
No, I'm saying if you replace, say, the Raiders with the Patriots, and then you have the Raiders, Chiefs.
Look, you're still going to have.
Patriots, Chiefs, Chargers, and what's the other one?
Broncos. Let me tell. Okay, so the Broncos are done this season. They're bad.
Oh god, they're bad.
They're bad.
They're bad. I'm convinced that one Super Bowl was the result of John Elway wishing on a monkey's paw, and it was like, all right, fine, we'll bring Peyton Manning back to life for one more game for him to not screw up, and then you can just win. But then afterwards, it's Casey Keenum.
I love the monkey paw thing.
That's what it is. Because that's what it is. Because as soon as that season was over, we won Super Bowl 50. Woo! Manning's like, I'm retiring. Brock Osweiler, the guy who they were going to get to replace him, like, going to Houston. Who's our quarterback?
Yeah.
I have
Trevor Siemian.
I've said it before. I've never seen a team. The last time I saw a team was probably the Broncos in '98, right? When they won 2 Super Bowls with Elway's last 2 years and he retires, and it's like defending Super Bowl champions. Who's their quarterback?
Wasn't that when Jake Cutler came in? What's his name? Jake Plummer.
Jake Plummer came in, and then Jake Plummer was something like 5-2, and they replaced him with Cutler.
Yeah, because if I remember right, I think Plummer always got a bit of a bad rap because he wasn't a half-bad quarterback.
Plummer had some really good seasons in Denver. I remember he was the first quarterback, and for a while, the only quarterback to beat Tom Brady in the postseason.
Yeah. Yeah, Plummer was always a little better than people gave him credit for, I always thought.
And then Plummer got replaced by Cutler, and then Cutler got replaced by the tandem of Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow. And then that got solved when they got Peyton Manning, and then they win the Super Bowl. They have a few good playoff years, win Super Bowl 50, and then Peyton Manning's like, I'm gonna go just make chicken parmesan commercials, and then it was
chicken parm. You taste so good.
Look, chicken parm's delicious. I love
it. Really is.
Peyton Manning, and but it's like you look at it since Elway retired, and it's like the Broncos can be broken down into years where they have Hall of Fame, some of the best of all time QBs, and then just, as Greg would say, stuff. It's like, is this one of the years where the Broncos are a legit Super Bowl contender, or is this a stuff year?
This is most definitely a stuff year.
It's Keenum in quarterback. Okay, it's a stuff year.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of knew, though, with both Keenum and who was the other one? Foles. after the years they had last year that this is what they're regressing back to the mean. I mean, that's who these guys are the quarterbacks we've seen.
I mean, okay, Zach, you were intimately familiar with Keenum, right? Like you knew what he was doing last year wasn't the real.
Oh, God,
we all knew it. I thought,
yeah, no.
And we all watched enough NFL football to know that, like, Nick Foles, that was not Nick Foles.
No.
And it's not even like Nick Foles came in and was awesome. Like, Nick Foles came in, last few games of the regular season, he sucked.
Yeah, he had one good game in the Super Bowl, basically.
The Eagles should have traded him, honestly.
I mean,
I really don't know why they didn't.
They barely beat out Atlanta.
Right.
And then he had two good games. He beat Minnesota, and then he had the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because that Minnesota game, Minnesota came out and struck first in that, if I remember right. They scored quick, then a lot of people think that had something the Eagles did. Had the Vikings not gotten the momentum taken away from them, they might win that game. But yeah,
it was a pick six.
Right. Yeah, that's right. But Foles is basically Jeff Hostetler from the 90 Giants, I think, where Phil Simms got hurt and Hostetler came in for the last 3 games of the season and let him do a Super Bowl win. But that's it. And so, of course, he goes out and gets big money from the Raiders the next year, and he was awful. I mean, we've seen it a million times in the NFL. Maybe not at the Super Bowl level, but, the Matt Flynn, of course, was another good example of it. Has one good game, cashes in, is not very good. So I don't know where we were at with that, but yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think Zach's right. Like, if the Eagles had, put Nick Foles out on the market immediately after the Super Bowl, just came off that great Super Bowl performance, there would have been a team dumb enough to pick him up.
And they could have picked up any quarterback to hold them over until Wentz got back.
And it would have been hard to find a quarterback who did a worse job than Nick Foles this season. So, now you can't trade Nick Foles because he started for the first 3 games and it sucked. So,
well, I'm sure there was a McCown out there that could have easily slid right into that slot in the roster.
Exactly. There's a McCown. You could have gotten a McCown for 3 games. Come on. There's always a McCown.
There's always another McCown.
Always another McCown, right.
Let's see. All right, so the Patriots are back. The Colts are bad. The Broncos are bad. The Jets are meh.
Where are we at on?
The Panthers are 3-1.
Let's talk about Sam Darnold for a second, because that seems to be the weekly. Where are we on Sam Darnold on a lot of shows? I don't know what he did. I know the Jets won on Sunday, right?
He threw 3 touchdowns.
So I'm not worried about him yet. I know a lot of people are kind of leaning towards bust with him, but I'm not there yet. I think he's going to be okay.
Towards bust. He's been. I did a breakdown of his stats for our paper last week, and he's been fine. He hasn't been amazing, but he also hasn't been bad. He's been very middle of the road, and that's okay. He's still kind of learning.
Well,
it seems to me that he doesn't have the best supporting cast around him.
No, that's the other part.
And even in the games they've lost, he's been he hasn't had a game where it's just what the fuck was that?
I think he's a guy that...
He hasn't had a Nathan Peterman game, let me put it that way.
I don't think anybody's ever had a Nathan Peterman game except Natty P.
There's only been one other guy who's had a worse game than Nathan Peterman, and he became a punter, so, for what it's worth.
Yeah. No, I think Darnold is playing at about the level of his team. He's going to be a little inconsistent. His team's a little inconsistent. They don't have a lot of great talent, and I'm not sweating him too much. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, Darnold's the worst of the 4 rookie quarterbacks," and I don't think that at all.
I don't think that at all.
I don't either.
No, he's fine. I do want to talk about the NFC South though, because Falcons, fucking Falcons.
Yeah.
Look. This season is why when you have a traumatic loss, like blowing a 23-point, lead in the Super Bowl in the 4th quarter, you gotta fucking blow it up, because this team stumbled a bit last year. This year, they're 1-4.
Are they? Are they that bad this year?
Atlanta Falcons are 1-4. They're last in the NFC South.
The Steelers dropped 41 points on them.
I knew that.
The Steelers aren't even good this year, and they dropped 41 points on them.
No, they're not.
This is just more proof We saw it with the Seahawks, how they kind of imploded slowly but surely after, that interception on the goal line. And now, then the Falcons blow a 23-point lead to the same team, actually. But, when you have issues like this, Keith Olbermann was right. When you have a loss this bad, it sticks with the team, and the only way to get over it is to blow it up and just bring in new people.
Yeah, I didn't even remember what team was Olbermann referring to when he did
the Seahawks.
Was it the Seahawks?
Yeah.
He was referring to the Seahawks, but it's holding true for the Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons, I thought they were going to be good this year. And I thought they had a young, improving defense. They've got Matt Ryan. They've got good receiver. Julio Jones, and I don't want to make this about fantasy football, but it's my only frame of reference for him right now. Not having a great season at all.
No. They also have another new receiver that has become Matt Ryan's favorite receiver, Calvin Ridley.
Drama.
But they've got talent on that team is what I'm saying. And the defense, it's not great, but it's good enough. They shouldn't be this bad, is what I'm saying. And I think you're right, Mike. I think that Super Bowl thing is catching up with them. So now you've got the NFC South and the Panthers. I think we even talked about this during the preview, that they're one of those teams you look up and all of a sudden you go, wow, they're 4-1.
At this point, it's going to be a race between the Panthers and the Saints. What are the Saints at right now?
4-1.
They're Saints are 4-1. Panthers are 3-1. The Falcons, we're only a quarter in. I don't want to write them off entirely, but when you're 1-4 and the division leader's 4-1, that's a lot of ground to cover.
They're done. Yeah, they're not coming back to make any sort of ground. They're not going to make the playoffs. They'd have to go on an incredible run.
They could put together, let's say that the NFC becomes a point where 9-7 can get you into a playoff spot. I could see the Falcons clawing and scratching their way to getting to the point where if we do this and this, we could go 9-7. But if anybody's looking for a magical, we're going to put it all together and go, 10-6. That's not going to happen.
If they're going to go 9-7, they have to go 8-3 the rest of the
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not impossible, but I wouldn't be getting my hopes up if I'm Falcons fans.
That's loser mentality.
Loser mentality, right?
It's loser. Yeah. What are you, a skirt, Greg? Come on.
I'm a skirt.
I'm saying those Super Bowl tickets, money well spent. I'm sure. Again, just buy a big screen TV, pocket the rest, and just lie and say
right. That's what I said. That's what I said. But anyway.
But the Falcons, so it's going to be between the Saints and the Panthers, because say what you will about the QB situation in Tampa, but Jameis Winston isn't taking them from 2-2 to division contender. It's not happening. I've seen enough Jameis Winston football in 2 years to say that it's not good.
Last thing on the NFL, the AFC North. It's the Bengals and everybody else, right?
The Ravens are in there, despite that Browns game. They're in there. The Browns are going to be pesky. It's a competitive division.
I wouldn't call it good. I would call it competitive.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick any of those teams to go anywhere in the playoffs, but yeah, competitive.
I honestly think the Steelers are the worst team in that division. In terms of just straight up what I've seen from all of the teams in that division. Oh, and look, they are in last place. Look at that. The Steelers are the worst team.
Am I ready to say that the Browns are better than the Steelers?
I think they are.
We should have beat them in week 1.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, okay, say what you will. Hugh Jackson's an idiot, but at least the Browns seem to be functioning as a cohesive team. The Steelers are just a mess. All of the Le'Veon Bell shit, the drama in the locker room, it's a goddamn clusterfuck over there.
Look at my Cleveland Browns in third place at 2-2-1. You ready? Okay, this is so perfect for the Browns season so far, right? Points for 114, points allowed 113.
Net game.
Before we start on the actual games themselves, I do want to talk about this, and I don't know if you guys have watched enough to notice it, but even Awful Announcing referenced it today. It would be nice if we had announcers that don't hate the game of baseball. I mean, these guys have spent more time complaining because it's not like the old days. They don't like the shift. They don't like that one of the Red Sox players swung the bat on 3-0. or that this guy ran on a pass ball. I don't need to hear this shit. If you don't like the game, then don't call the game. Go home. It's just this old get off my lawn mentality because the game's not like what it used to be. Well, so what? The what's his name? Ron Darling was like just pitching a fit because this guy for the Red Sox swung on a 3-0 count. He's like, there's a rule, there's an unwritten rule book. Well, yeah, Ron, if you knew anything about it, you know that when you're up 10-1, you don't even let it get to 3. Does it
really fucking matter?
Yeah, but if you really want to go by the quote-unquote unwritten rules, you don't let it get to 3-0. You come up swinging just to get it over with. You don't sit there and wait for pitches and then not swing on 3-0. But anyway, it's been a very uneventful first round, I thought.
Yeah.
I admit I was bummed when the Cubs lost, and I don't even particularly like the Cubs. I mean, I think they're fine. I don't hate them, but I can be brought to feel things for the Cubs, whereas the Rockies are baseball's white noise. So
the classic stuff team.
So I was pulling for the Cubs, if only because it was like, oh, okay, if the Cubs win, then maybe I'll care. But they didn't.
I'm riding the Brewers.
Neither wildcard game was particularly interesting.
No.
The fucking A's. Can we fold the A's?
I think I texted you guys. I turned it off when the Yankees were up 2-0 and hadn't made an out yet in the first inning. I said, there's no point in even watching this.
Is this just all your existence is good for, Oakland? That you're just going to lose to the Yankees in the postseason?
Astros made quick work of the Indians.
Yeah, that wasn't very surprising to me either. That Astros team is good.
Last stand of Chief Wahoo.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with that. Part of me is like, good riddance. And then part of me is like, if the Native Americans don't give a fuck about it, why should we? I don't know.
It was part of the Columbus Day miracle where the Indians, Braves, and Redskins all lost.
I mean, the Braves' identity, I don't think, is a problem.
No.
Currently. But whatever. I don't want to get into that discussion. But they did.
Some of their older logos might be.
Oh, yeah, the fucking.
Well, Chief Nakahoma?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, that could be a problem. But, I don't know. Again, nothing against the Braves. I actually think they had a pretty fun season this year. But, the Dodgers, look, I have a soft spot for the LA Dodgers. I just do.
I do too.
I can't really explain it.
Sandy Koufax.
I want to say, yeah, that's it, but I've kind of always just kind of had a thing for them even before I knew who Sandy Koufax was. I actually think it might have been another Jewish player.
I was going to say, they've had a few Jewish players. Sean Green.
Sean Green, because Green used to play for the Blue Jays.
Yep.
That's it. That is it. So Green played for the Blue Jays. It was cool because I'm Jewish. I'm a Blue Jays fan. He was a Jewish Blue Jay. It was awesome. Then he went to the Dodgers, and because there was no league conflict because it's ALNL, I was like, sure, go Dodgers. And I guess they've always just kind of stuck with me for whatever reason. I want to see the Dodgers and the current team, this current Dodgers team, win a World Series. I just do.
The Dodgers practically swept the Braves.
I mean, yes.
The Braves should have just blown Game 3 and gotten it over with.
But then Game 4 happens, right? And then it's like, well, what the fuck was even the point of that? It's like when the Sharks,
exactly.
Right? It's like when the Sharks played in the Stanley Cup against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh had a chance to win it at home, and the Sharks push it to a Game 6 and then crap the bed in San Jose.
Yeah.
Well, what the fuck was the point?
Right.
You couldn't just let the Penguins win it on home ice or something?
And with the Indians and the Astros, I looked at it and I thought, the Indians are a good ball club, but the problem that they have this year is that the Astros, Yankees, and Red Sox are probably great ball clubs. I think the Astros are clearly still the best team in the American League. I know Boston won 108 games and all that, but they also had the luxury of 60 of those games coming against a pretty weak American League East. So the Astros had to play 60 games against some pretty good clubs in Oakland, Seattle. The Angels weren't great this year, but they weren't Baltimore by any definition. The Astros won 100 games in a much tougher division. So everybody's all on the Red Sox and Yankees and all that right now, but the Houston Astros are the best team in baseball.
I'm just happy that we got the Yankees Red Sox out of the way.
I finally watched a little bit of it last night.
I didn't turn on a second of that series. I don't need to hear so much circle jerking going on.
I turned it on. I got through a half an inning and I turned it off. I said, I just can't take it. I'm so over these two teams.
I love it on the CCSLC forums. There's currently a thread for like forgotten rivalries, rivalries that aren't as prominent as they once were. And someone responded, Yankees, Red Sox, so great to see these two teams back at it.
Yeah, it's been way too long for them to have been apart the way they've been. That's interesting, though. What are some of the rivalries that...
People had a lot of them. The two that I remember, my suggestion was Maple Leafs Blues, because that actually used to be a bit of a rivalry back in the day. And the other one that stood out was Yankees Royals.
Yeah, that was a big one in the, I think, early 80s. They were blood rivals. They hated each other. I would throw in, I don't know if they're still rivals anymore or not, but Detroit, Colorado there in the late 90s, oh my God.
That rivalry died because the Red Wings needed to move to the East for reasons.
Yeah, but that...
undefined reasons, but reasons.
I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that thing, but man, oh man, that was... I mean, you looked forward to watching those two play each other because they hated each other's guts.
Oh, no, I remember.
Yeah, that was a great rivalry that's, I don't think, there anymore. I don't know. I have to look at the thread, but that's a cool idea.
Chris Osgood fighting Patrick Watt center ice.
Yeah. Well, when the goalies throw down, you get yourself a good brawl going. But Astros-Boston could be a good series. I hope it's not. I hope the Astros take them in 4.
Yeah.
And Milwaukee, L.A. Yeah. It's just – it hasn't been a great season for baseball. I don't think. There hasn't been really anything of a pennant race to speak of. I mean, we had a couple playoff games at the end of the year, but for the most part, I would love to see the Brewers get there, but I don't know if I want to see them take out the Dodgers to do it. I'm happy as long as it's not the Red Sox. I'm happy. That's the way I'm looking at it.
I would be so much more on board both the Astros and the Brewers if they were in the opposite leagues. I'm a big AL-NL purist, and I don't care if the Braves were in Milwaukee for however many years. The Brewers began life as an AL club. They should always have been an AL club, and Houston was born an NL club. They should always be an NL club.
Wouldn't that be a little strange?
Why don't they just flop those two back? Put Milwaukee back in the American and put Houston back in the National where they belong.
Well, I don't think Houston cares one way or another what league they're in, but like I've heard that one of the big reasons why they switched Milwaukee into the NL was because a lot of Milwaukee fans felt like slighted that they were in the AL. Because the Braves were Milwaukee's team for a long time. They were an NL club, and then they moved to Atlanta, and then the Brewers came around. But the Brewers were an AL team, but like a lot of people in Milwaukee were like, "We're an NL town."
No, you know what it was? Bud Selig owned the Brewers, and he was willing to make the move. That's why that happened. Because you got to think. I mean, the Brewers came to Milwaukee in 1970. Milwaukee lost the Braves in 63, 64, somewhere along there. So that dog don't hunt. I'm sorry, but it was because Bud Selig was willing to move his team when no one else was, and he was commissioner of baseball. That's why the Brewers are in the National League. I mean, we're a National League town's a nice narrative, but I think it's complete bullshit. That's what I think. But I don't know. I would love to see – I want Houston to beat Boston, obviously. I think the Dodgers – I mean, the Brewers are fun, interesting, but I think the Dodgers are just better, right?
Like I said, I want the Dodgers are probably my pick to win it out of the teams remaining. And, I mean, they're who I want to see win, but I admit Milwaukee gives me caution. Like, I think the Brewers could easily beat them.
We're just getting started in it. I think the Astros will beat – who's got home field in that? Boston?
Boston.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
I don't think it matters.
But I don't think Boston's as good as the Astros. I mean, I know that sounds crazy when you look at Boston and their 108 wins, but I don't think they're as good.
Again,
the pitching's not there.
Some of those came against the
right.
The Orioles, or, as we should just call them, the baseball Arizona Cardinals.
You say the same thing about the Indians too. When the Astros swept them away, the Indians got to play a bunch of games against Kansas City and Detroit. So
yeah,
God, right. The
Minnesota.
AL Central is just. Oh, and I like a lot of teams in the AL Central. Like, there are a lot. Like, I kind of like Greg, where I have my favorite team, but then there are a lot of other teams I like.
Yeah.
And in the AL Central, like the Twins.
I like the Twins. I like the Royals, but they were both. Well, the Twins were decent for a little while.
The Twins, and I like the White Sox.
Yeah, that's funny. I like the White Sox too. We're probably the only two people that aren't White Sox fans that actually like that team.
I have a White Sox cap, actually.
We've got great uniforms. I mean, it's people like us. It's tough to root against great uniforms.
Oh yeah,
there's some great uniforms in AL Central.
Maybe if they were still wearing shorts, I wouldn't like them.
I'm sure we wouldn't. I was going to ask, has anybody been paying any attention to college football this season?
No.
There hasn't been anything to pay attention to.
I watched Ohio State play Penn State, and that's about all I've done this year with college. I mean, once in a while on a Saturday night, like one of the crazy West Coast games will be on at like 1 a.m. I'll watch like Air Force play whoever, but I have not been following it at all, really. Which is odd for me. For both of us, really, Zach. We were such huge college football fans.
Dude, I've been paying attention, like just checking in on scores and stuff, but there's nothing interesting about it.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, well, it's two things, really. I think part of it is, one, that it's the same teams on top.
Right.
It's Alabama, it's Clemson, and, yes, there are others, but that's pretty much it. Ohio State's up there. And then the other thing that is kind of taking away my enjoyability in college football is the fact that, well, it is these same teams, and part of the reason it's these same teams is the amount of freshmen that are playing, which you would think is exciting, all this youth and rookies, but it's like there's nobody to commit to. In college more than any other sport, I mean, it's always been this way, but I think even more so in this current era, you're rooting for the laundry.
Yeah.
You're rooting for the institution.
Yep.
More so than anything else.
I mean, that's always been the case, though, with, in my opinion, like, college football, because it's like you root for your school, right? And it's but
there's nobody to be invested in.
But even when you're just rooting for the school, though, Mike, you always get like at least a player or two. Like at Ohio State, it would be like Ezekiel Elliott,
Cam Newton.
Yeah, Troy Smith before that. Certain guys, and I keep calling Ohio State's quarterback Clem Haskins because I can't remember his first name.
Yeah. It's freshmen. It's kids transferring all over the place.
Yeah.
It's there's nothing to it, and because there's and funnily enough, because there's all that change and movement and the new faces of the sport, it's the same teams on top as there's always been.
Right.
Sure, there's a couple interesting stories like, hey, Notre Dame's winning, and I think Stanford's up there. There was another Pac-12 team that was up there. Colorado's having a nice season, out of the Pac-12. But besides that, it's all right. How just counting down the days until Alabama wins again.
Yeah,
we don't think Alabama would be interesting because it's this quarterback battle or whatever. But Nick Saban's an asshole and doesn't want to talk about any of this stuff.
Right. I mean, I was going to say we don't even have like the fun little school. I mean, UCF's ranked 10th, but other than that, it's just the same old characters until you get down to South Florida.
Yeah, and that's always been the case, that the same general group of schools. But I can't remember it being this samey for this.
Well, I'm looking at it. We got a couple of newcomers here. Kentucky's ranked number 18, which is kind of surprising.
Right. Well, yeah, they moved up to 13 and then lost last week. Yeah.
But you look at the top 10. It's Alabama.
They're not going to beat LSU.
No, of course not. It's, top 10, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, West Virginia, Washington, Penn State, Texas. I mean, UCF, but, let's be honest about it. They're not going to, Oklahoma, Michigan, LSU, Florida, Wisconsin.
UCF is focused on the civil conflict, guys.
Yeah.
But it's not even, for me,
how stupid does that thing look now with UCF actually becoming kind of a prominent team?
Kind of important.
Yeah. And who's the other team? UConn?
UConn, yeah.
I mean, my God, how dumb does that look now?
It was initiated by UConn, and UCF never gave a shit. And then UCF technically won the trophy, but then they didn't take it with them and left it on the field, and now no one knows where it is, which is exactly what we all said would happen.
Right. We literally predicted exactly what would happen with that trophy, and that's exactly what happened with it. But now UCF, which has kind of become a national stage team, has to look at UConn and go, boy, you guys are just a bunch of morons with this whole... Was it called the civil conflict?
The civil conflict.
Right.
Because in conflict, it was CON for Connecticut, and then there's an the F and L in it for Florida.
Oh, well, that was
witty. The whole point of it, yeah.
That was mighty witty of those guys.
I just imagine now, the civil conflict trophy is just It's with some homeless guy in Orlando somewhere.
It's holding up like a car without a tire on somebody's front yard. They got like a cinder block on one side, and there's a trophy on the other holding up the front end.
From rural Florida, like the janitor just picked it up off the field, like, hot damn, I can get rid of that one shaky-looking cinder block.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, usually I love college football, but I think you're right, Zach. It's just more of the same, and so what?
Yeah, and really, it's not even like the sameness in the top 10. It's Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State. Yeah, Georgia's in there, but they were in there last year. And so it's kind of like, all right, what do I have to look forward to? Well, when Auburn or when Alabama plays Georgia in the SEC title game. Well,
I mean, really, there's not much to look forward to until we get to like rivalry weekend when you're going to get the Iron Bowl, which is always good, and Ohio State, Michigan, and that stuff. But right now, I mean, I just got no interest in, like, Ohio State played Indiana last week. I thought, I am not wasting my Saturday afternoon watching this. I'm just, it's pointless.
You know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And
all these teams are so much better than the rest of their constituents in their conferences that it's kind of, it's when you get Texas upsetting Oklahoma, it's a kind of a big deal. But I wasn't, because the other weeks of college football weren't enough to get me to sit down and watch. I wasn't sitting down and watching. So it happened. It's kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But beyond that, what are you going to do? I mean, you've had some close calls. Like, I did watch the Clemson Texas A&M game from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I did too, a little bit of that.
But I don't know. I'm sure there are exciting games going on, but big picture wise, there's nothing about college football that is enticing really kind of anybody right now. I think even major college football fans would say that.
I can find two things in this season to be excited about. One, fuck you, Penn State.
Yeah.
Courtesy of the Buckeyes, although it is kind of tainted because, as Zach said, it's not like Ohio State has the moral high ground anymore.
Well, I mean, they have it in this particular instance, but it's not exactly like they're standing at the summit.
No,
of the moral high ground.
They're not exactly paragons, but
no.
but good on them for taking Penn State out. And also, Michigan lost the first game of the season, which was delightful.
Yes.
Fuck you, Jim Harbaugh. You fucking act fraud.
Yep. I agree, but yeah, it's just that's why, I said,
I think they're good. They're good for at least 3 more losses 3 losses total because they've got to lose to Michigan State and Ohio State later on.
Right.
So.
But that's why when I do flip it on a Saturday night, it's like 10:30 at night, and I'm looking for the weirdo games that no one else is watching on ESPNU or CBS Sports Network or whatever, because I just don't. I want to see at least teams that I've never seen before. I don't know if they're evenly matched or not, but I would really rather watch Air Force play whoever it was they were playing that night. I think it might have been SMU or someone like that, but I would really rather watch that than Ohio State play Indiana. I mean, look, in a couple of weeks we get Tuesday Night Maction coming back, so that'll be nice.
Maction?
Yeah.
Look. South Florida versus Cincinnati for the national title. They're both undefeated. Let's fucking do it.
Hey, I'm right there, man. I'm with you on that. Anyway, yeah, so I was just curious if I was the only one, but it sounds like none of us are really paying particularly close attention this year.
What do I have to look forward to, really? So
yeah, no, it's just there's nothing to look out for. Like you look at the landscape, and if you watch college football over the last couple of years, you know exactly where things stand.
Yep.
Like it's Alabama's world, and we're living in it. And
it's like when my uncle texts me, like, how's it going in college football? Who's ranked number 1? I'm like, still Alabama, and he goes, someone should beat them. And I'm like, well, I mean, they're trying.
We now join the following program already in progress.
All right, then. Well, then
we're getting involved in everything else. Everybody else is waking up in the sports world.
I guess we'll have more NBA talk next week.
Yes, we will do our NBA preview next week, which is always fun.
Mm-hmm. Hey, study your Miami Heat roster.
Right, exactly.
Oh, fuck.
I will warn.
If I told you right now to name a Miami Heat.
No.
Couldn't do it.
Right now, I'm just telling you right now, I can't do it.
Can't do it.
Not even one.
No.
Take a shot in the
Chris
dark.
Bosh?
Is he technically on the roster still?
Is Dwayne Wade?
No, he was with the Cavs last year.
No, Dwayne Wade has returned to the Heat for his final.
Oh, I named a Heat. I named a 2018-2019 Heat. Woo!
So there you go, folks. A little preview of our NBA preview next week. And I will tell those of you that maybe have not been listening for the entirety of the year since the last one, if you're looking for in-depth NBA analysis for our preview, you're coming to the wrong place.
I can tell you all about the Lakers.
Yeah.
I can give you a blow-by-blow of what the Lakers season is going to be like.
But I will also say...
I could talk about.
I will also say, if you've never heard it, you should tune in just to check it out, because I promise you will not hear another NBA preview like it.
Do you think you could name another Heat?
No.
No, let's save it for next week.
I'm lucky I got Dwayne Wade.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm looking at this roster. There's like... if you said the name, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that guy. Like Hassan Whiteside?
It's just like a team of that guys.
It's a team of that guys and Goran Dragic.
Oh, right. He's on my fantasy team. I should have known him. Anyway, so that's going to do it, folks. We will get deeper into the NBA next week on the preview show. Until then, follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports, where we've added a new feature where we give you a little taste of Bass NFL Football Sunday, which is kind of fun.
DeAndre Liggins.
And you can also subscribe to the show via iTunes, Stitcher, what are the other ones? Spreaker, and I forget. I think Facebook, we're on there somewhere too. So with that, we'll see you next time.
Adebayo.
You're just making up names. These aren't real people.
Justice Winslow. Justice spelled with an ISE at the end.
That's got to be my new favorite player. Anyway.
Justice Winslow.
Justice Winslow.
Miami Heat All-Star.
All right, folks. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for us. We will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Yante Maten.
Justice Winslow.
Great name.